We are back with another episode of Syracuse Sports presented by Krause Health, the exclusive healthcare partner for Syracuse Athletics. I'm Brent, you are you, and you are here, and we thank you for that. Did you subscribe? Did you follow? Did you do the thing that all us podcasters tell you to do? We thank you for that. You should follow, subscribe, all those things on Spotify, Apple, YouTube, wherever you get your podcast, because when a new episode of Syracuse Sports pops up and we do our Syracuse football postgame shows, and coming soon. Oh, yeah. Syracuse basketball postgame shows. They're closer than you think, kids. And we're going to talk a little hoops today before we get into the meat of the matter, football-wise. No matter what it is, you should be subscribed and following. So when a new episode is here, you don't miss out. You don't want to be the guy or the gal that's missing out on the latest episode of Syracuse Sports, right? So make sure you're subscribing and following. And a big shout out to our Syracuse Sports Insiders who made this episode happened today. I turned to our Syracuse Sports Insiders and I said, what mid-season Syracuse football awards do you have? I want to know the categories you're thinking about because we've got our Syracuse football mid-season awards up on syracuse.com. And we did the standard stuff, offensive player, defensive player, biggest surprise. We've got a couple cool categories in there that I think you'll enjoy, and that's great. But I said, I wonder what the insiders are thinking about the midseason. And as always, you guys came through with amazing categories. So we're going to highlight some of the best sent by our Syracuse Sports Insiders. And just a reminder that if you're not a Syracuse Sports Insider, it is time to join the growing community of Syracuse Sports Insiders that get to text me directly. That is one of the great benefits of being a Syracuse Sports Insider. Your questions, comments, thoughts, opinions on all matters Syracuse sports, you can text me directly. I can not only text you directly, but of course our group gets the group texts from me, tidbits, information, breaking news. If I have breaking news, you're going to get it first. A lot of you guys have been asking about, hey, what's going on with Zeed Haynes and what's going on with certain things happening with Syracuse football. I don't have an update on that, by the way, but if I did get that morsel of information or any breaking news, our Syracuse Sports Insiders are going to get that first, direct via text message. Cut through the clutter of social media and join this growing community of passionate Syracuse sports fans who met in Vegas recently. They're getting to know each other, and it's an amazing growing community of Syracuse sports fans that we would love for you to be a part of. So if you'd like to become a Syracuse Sports Insider, the cool thing is you can try it free for 2 weeks. Just text the word orange to 315-847-3895. You can see the information on your screen if you're watching on YouTube on how to join as well. And it's just $3.99 a month after that. So we're going to get to our Syracuse Sports Insiders and their mid-season football awards as the Orange are 5-1 here at the midway point of the football season coming up shortly. But I noted basketball is around the corner. As I tape this episode of the podcast, they are 10 days away from their first exhibition game at the JMA Dome. It's been a little colder in central New York this week. Had to get out the long sleeve shirts, right? And I debated whether or not to turn the heat on. By the way, got to hold firm. Don't turn the heat on until November 1st. Hold the line. Hold the line. I'm one of those people. But it made me think, okay, we're halfway through football season. Basketball's here. Media day is this week. By the way, we're going to be there. I'll bring you full coverage of that next week on the pod here, particularly a lot of the new voices on this team, but certainly some of the familiar names on this basketball team. And with that comes the announcement of the preseason awards and the preseason rankings. And this week, the ACC preseason media lists are out. And both Syracuse women's and men's basketball were picked to finish 11th in the ACC. I will remind you that last season, the Syracuse men's team was picked to finish 10th in the ACC, and they finished tied for 5th. The women's team was picked to finish, I believe, 9th, and they finished tied for 2nd in the ACC and had Felicia Leggett-Jack's best year, NCAA tournament run, the whole deal, right? Well, things change and rosters turn over, and I understand that my colleagues in the ACC don't follow Syracuse as closely as we do, and I think every team that falls down the rankings a little bit is going to say, hey, what about us? I will say this, though. If I was still in Las Vegas with our Syracuse Sports Insiders, and I'm not saying you should go do this, but I'm saying I would go do this, I would run to the nearest, for entertainment purposes only, booth and say, give me Syracuse to finish higher than 11th. And I'm talking about both teams, but particularly let's talk about the men's team for a second here. That team last year finished 5th in the ACC. They won 20 games. They came up short of the tournament. And look, no matter what we say about Syracuse basketball, from now until they actually tip off for real against Lemoyne at the Dome, and that's less than a month away, they've got to make the tournament this year. You cannot miss the NCAA tournament for 3 straight years. You can't miss being ranked in the Associated Press college basketball poll for what's going on 6 years now and still call yourself one of the premier programs in college football, or college basketball, pardon me. You've got to show receipts. You have got to show receipts. You've got to remind people about why Syracuse basketball is what it is. And it's not because, hey, remember what Carmelo Anthony did 20 years ago? As cool as that is. And we'll see what Kion Anthony does with his commitment, which is coming up really any time now. But you've got to show receipts. You've got to renew your membership in that group, whatever group Syracuse is in college basketball. Otherwise, you're going to slide down the perception in the rankings a little bit, quite literally in a sense. I will say this, though. Putting Syracuse 11th in the ACC this year, they're going to regret that. I'm very bullish on Syracuse basketball this year. I think they have a great team, and that comes with everything that's got to happen. Particularly, this team has got to come together with 7 new faces, transfers and freshmen included. But you know what? Everybody's dealing with that in college basketball. That is not an excuse anymore in college basketball. It is bordering more on a reason than an excuse, but everybody's dealing with the same darn thing. And it's not like it wasn't happening before with the one and done era firmly in place and players coming and going. But with the transfer portal, with NIL, of course, it's accelerated that process. Well, that's why you pay Adrian Autry the big bucks. This is what coaches have to figure out, adapt or die. So the whole coming together thing and building chemistry thing, that's what you got to figure out as a coach. It's no longer an excuse to me, but I like this team. I think they've got a legit bona fide point guard and Carlos, who they brought over from Hofstra. I like that they have veteran leaders, J.J. Starling, Chris Bell, whose game has improved over the offseason, and he is one of the better three-point shooters in the ACC, but I think you're going to see a better all-around game from him. If Eddie Lampkin comes through, particularly what people say about Eddie Lampkin as a passer from the center position, if you don't double-team him, he can score. If you do double-team him, he's going to find the open guy. Chris Bell and the three-point shooters on this team, Choppa Moore, big freshman coming in, they love to hear that, right? I mentioned Moore. Donnie Freeman. People are really sleeping on Donnie Freeman. I understand that Cooper Flagg is the guy, okay? He is going to be the number 1 pick in next year's draft. He is the star-studded freshman. He'll win Freshman of the Year. He could win Player of the Year in the ACC. I totally understand that. But the fact that Donnie Freeman did not get 1 vote as Rookie of the Year, they're going to regret that. That is a joke. And you're going to see how fast Donnie Freeman is going to rise here. You add in guys like Jair Davis and Lucas Taylor. I got to look at my notes because of all the new guys. Lucas Taylor, Kyle Cuff. The great mystery of Syracuse is Chance Westery right now. He's out a little bit right now with an illness. He had been out all of last year with a knee injury. But this team has speed. It has scoring. It has depth. It has chemistry, we hope, right? And I feel like it checks a lot of the boxes you need to make the NCAA tournament, which is just the bottom line expectation of Syracuse basketball this year. So I think this team is better than last year's team. And that team finished tied for 5th in the ACC and won 20 games. This team's better. This team, I think, will make the tournament. And all those predictions, and I hate making predictions because people like me circle back and say, why'd you say that? Right? Happens to me all the time, right? But 11th in the ACC? You got to be kidding me. With the women's team, quickly, look, I got to see it. Deasia Fair was such a force on that team, particularly all the times that she had to save that team's hide in the fourth quarter last year. Go back and look. All the fourth quarter big performances she had, big shots that she hit. There were games where Fair was either defended well or just didn't play well in the first 3 quarters. Fourth quarter comes, and that's when the stars shine. You just don't replace the 3rd all-time leading scorer in the history of women's college basketball. They know that, and they're saying all the right things, how a team replaces a player, but I've got to see it. That is a big adjustment, and I just said it. Everybody makes the same adjustment in college basketball, but to lose a star like that, I got to see it with the women's team. But I will say this, they're going to finish higher than 11th in the ACC, right? Little hoops talk in there. Nothing wrong with that. You got to love it. But football is still prominently on our minds. Syracuse enters another bye week. Huge game against Pittsburgh coming up on Thursday, October 24th. This is the biggest Syracuse Pitt game in recent memory. 6-0 Pitt, 5-1 Syracuse. So we'll get more into the meat and potatoes and the X's and O's of that matchup next week on the pod leading up to that game. But let's focus a little bit on the midseason. And we love to do midseason awards, right? And kind of take a look at what's happened in the first 6 games and try and project what's to come in the next 6 games. So I turn to our Syracuse Sports Insiders. You guys came through as always, and I can't wait to highlight your great midseason awards coming up here. But as you know, we have been highlighting your original music here on Syracuse Sports, and we've got a good one today. Shout out to Mark Bradwick. You guys know Mark, Texan Mark. He is one of the great tailgaters on the Syracuse football scene. If you've ever been to one of his tailgates, you know how amazing they are. He arranges the tailgates on the road, including recently in Las Vegas. He's a great guy. He is a passionate Syracuse fan, and his son has a great song that is about and dedicated to Central New York. It's called Coming Home. Now, Mark's son goes by Valoramos on Spotify, YouTube. All the information on where you can find his music is in the show notes, and he wrote this great song with Central New York in mind and a dedication to Syracuse, Syracuse football, and all great things Central New York. So we're going to take a listen to a little bit of that song now, and then you'll hear the whole thing at the end of the podcast. And a reminder to please send me your original music to be highlighted here on Syracuse Sports. All the information on how you can do that is in the show notes, and we would love to continue to do that. Let's listen to a little bit of Coming Home, and then we'll talk some Syracuse football midseason awards.
They say home is where the heart is. Well, mine's back in the 315. It's been waiting where I left it. Oh, I've been gone for so long now. I'm on my way, Q's. I'm on my way, Q's. This time there's no excuse. Yeah, I'm on my way, Q's. On my way, Q's. Back to all I love.
We turned to our Syracuse Sports Insiders and we said, what midseason awards do you guys have for Syracuse football? And you came through, as always. So let's get right to it, shall we? We start with Jamal, who says MVP and MIP, that being most important player, goes to Kyle McCord. You got to start with Kyle McCord. Kyle McCord has made an enormous difference on this football team. And look, this is no disrespect to Ryan Nassib or Eric Dungy or Garrett Schrader, who all accomplished great things at quarterback. And this is recent times, right? But Kyle McCord in 6 games has already harpened conversations about having the best single season in Syracuse football history. He has thrown for 300 yards in 6 straight games. No quarterback in the history of Syracuse football has ever done that. The record for 300-yard games in a career is Dungy with 12. Who's to say McCord can't get there in a single season? Can he throw for 300 yards in every game? Would you doubt it if he did? He makes all the throws, NFL-level throws, more consistent NFL-level throws than any quarterback I've seen here. And again, Eric Dungy and Nassib and Schrader did it in their own way. But McCord is different. He brings an air of confidence, and he brings a question to mind, and that is, Ohio State, what the hell were you thinking? Letting Kyle McCord walk away. Will Howard's a good quarterback, but I think Kyle McCord is starting to show. I think he would have won that Oregon game if you want to get into that. But McCord has gotten to the point where I don't even know what to say about him anymore. He's been so consistent. He has been the guy, and it just goes to show you, when you have a quarterback like that, you are in every game you play, how much better he has made this offense. And look, everybody's eaten in this offense. Jackson Meeks has emerged as the top gun. Aronde Gatson, Trevor Pena, right? There is a stat out there where they are, let me find it here while we're yakking about it here, but those guys right now, so here it is. Jackson Meeks, Trevor Pena, and Aronde Gatson are all averaging over 70 yards receiving per game. Syracuse is the only FBS school in the country with 3 players averaging over 70 yards per game. You know what that is? That's Kyle McCord, right? So, Jamal, you hit it on the head. So many conversations about the success of 5-1 Syracuse football so far starts and ends with Kyle McCord. So, the most important award at the top, but some great ones from you guys, including Ed in North Syracuse. Swiss Army Knife Award, Fidel Diggs. He's an edge rusher. He's a middle linebacker. He's an outside linebacker. He's a spy. You name it, he does it, and thank God he does. And Ed, it's the nail on the head as well, because Fran Brown said it best. He told us in the post-game after Syracuse's win over UNLV in Vegas that he told the team before that game, if Kyle McCord and Fidel Diggs play their best football, we'll win. That you can apply to every single game for Syracuse football. And I like how Ed framed that, because Fidel, there's been a couple games where he's kind of disappeared, but that's because of the defensive attention that he gets, and they're asking him to do a lot. But when you look at his stats, when you look at his presence, he's got 8 tackles for loss. He's got 28 overall tackles. He has made 2 of the biggest plays this season. The 4th down stop against Georgia Tech and the stop in overtime against UNLV, which held them to a field goal and allowed Syracuse to go down on the other end. And LaQuint Allen, he's going to get some awards, trust me, dragging that defender across the goal line. One of UNLV's better linebackers, by the way. Diggs, like McCord, has made such a huge impact on the defensive side of the ball. And it just goes to show you, you play your cards right in that transfer portal, instant impact, right? Mike P says, comeback player of the year, Trevor Pena. No question about it. You're going to see some more love for Trevor in this. He just brought everything together, especially with Zeed Haynes dealing with his situation. I don't know if he's coming back. A lot of you are asking about that. I honestly don't know anything at this point. He's dealing with a personal matter, and we're going to let him deal with that personal matter. But what Zeed Haynes brings from a football standpoint is the one thing Syracuse doesn't have, and that is a true deep threat. How they've gotten around that, we just talked about it. Everybody eats. Jackson Meeks has emerged as, I think, Kyle's most trusted target. We knew Aronde Gatson was going to get the numbers again and be that guy. And all ACC tight end, and he has done everything to check that box, even with a couple of games, including the Holy Cross game where he had 1 catch for 4 yards. And you say, what the heck's going on here? But he's certainly recovered since then. But Trevor is the safety valve. Trevor is the guy who's always open. Trevor is the guy who is getting yards after the catch. And McCord, I think he trusts Meeks the most, but the guy he knows is always going to be there, is going to be open, can keep the chains moving. And we heard so much about the value that Trevor Pena had from the last coaching staff, and we saw it last year when he wasn't in the lineup and OG wasn't in the lineup, and that offense just broke down to the point where obviously we saw Dan Villari and LaQuint Allen and anybody else on that offense just kind of going out there and doing what they could with Schrader banged up last year. Pena has been huge. He has been the comeback player of the year and a couple other creative ones that you guys are going to come up with here. And Mark says most impactful transfer is Jackson Meeks in his humble opinion, right? Trevor has made that impact. But Mark, I like how you put this. Now, I think you would have to say Kyle McCord is the obvious choice for this. And I just brought up Diggs, but I think you can make a strong case for Jackson Meeks for what we were just talking about. So Zeed Haynes is not there. While Trevor and OG provide some consistent targets for McCord, Meeks has been that extra guy that you have to account for. He made that huge touchdown catch against NC State. He made a huge touchdown catch against UNLV. He's had big numbers in 2 of the last 3 games, 11 catches against NC State, right? Syracuse now has bona fide, everybody eats 3 receivers, and you want to see a Justice Ross Simmons get involved and another name or two just to throw the defense off and give McCord other options here, which again, Zeed Haynes was supposed to provide. But I think you can make a case to the way you framed it, Mark. Most impactful transfer, and McCord and Fidel have certainly made an impact, but Meeks has just taken that offense the one step further that they needed. And here's where he also makes an impact, Mark. In the locker room, the wide receiver room in particular, they look up to him. He sets a tone. He is a great kid to talk to. I've talked to Jackson a few times, and he is mature and just you talk to athletes over the years and some of them have a certain presence. And even for 20, 21, 22-year-old kids, like you could just tell the ones that kind of know the deal and how to handle themselves publicly and know the spotlight they're under. And he played at Georgia and he has seen college football at its highest level. And he is just an absolute pleasure to talk to. And I think the way you frame that, Mark, is great. Now, we can have debates about McCord. It would pretty much come down to McCord, Diggs, or Meeks, but well-deserved honor there from Mark, I think, in that way. From Dave M. says, Tough Guy Award goes to LaQuinn Allen based on what he did at the end of last year with basically no quarterback and this year. Dave, there is no question about it that LaQuinn Allen would have to win the award as the toughest guy in this team, the guy that sets the tone on this team. He drags a defender across the goal line to beat UNLV, and we all know he's not 100%. There have been a couple of instances this year where LaQuinn has come off the field, and he has had to literally walk it off. You can see him on the sideline, and I have seen on a couple different occasions this year, he has waved off trainers. No, I'm staying in the game. He's talked about it. Fran Brown has talked about it in that UNLV game in particular. How like you're not getting him off the field. He reminds me of the Knight from the oh boy, what are the movies here? The Monty Python movies, right? You know, like you could chop off his arms and legs, and he's still going to be like, "I'll bite your bloody leg off." Like he will fight no matter what. He is unquestioned the toughest guy in this team. Fran Brown has said a number of times he sets the tone on this team. And look, the running game for Syracuse is in an interesting spot right now. It has definitely taken a back seat to the passing game. Now, look, it's an RPO offense. But when you look at the amount of pass attempts that Kyle McCord has had, 63 against UNLV, 43 against NC State, some of that is deceiving because in an RPO offense, a lot of those short throws, for example, to Trevor Pena, they're essentially run plays, right? So I get those numbers can deceive a little bit, but a lot of fans have been like, where's the running game? And frankly, the offensive line needs to plow the road a little bit better in that running game. But you got LaQuinn Allen, who's clearly not 100%. We know Will Nixon's now out for the year, and young Yassine Willis, my guy, is coming along, is starting to complement Allen, has proven he belongs on the field, particularly in that UNLV game, right? We saw Dan Villari mix it up a little bit, going back to last year, direct snaps, smart, get him in there, utilize him as best as you can. Frankly, he has not been doing well in the passing game this year, but he's a football player who should be on the field, and they were smart about how they did that against NC State. But man, what LaQuinn did this year and last year, as Dave noted here, and he goes on to say, I've been watching Syracuse football for 40 years. He isn't the best running back. In my opinion, that's Joe Morris, but he's the toughest I've seen, and he's an old school football player. Can't give him a better compliment than that, right? I think LaQuinn would appreciate that compliment as well. Michael S., the player who we'd like to have a slice at varsity with. There's a lot of good choices here. I think McCord is very, I'll say the word stoic in public, in media sessions. Like he's very polished. But have you seen the video going around of Kyle McCord where he's doing the rap in the locker room? Like there's a side of McCord that you would get, I think, in a setting like that. I mentioned Jackson Meeks. You would have a great time. Yassine Willis, who I've had the opportunity to talk to. You'd have a ball. LaQuint would be a great choice for this. There's a lot of great choices for this. A lot of guys. I'll tell you, though, who wins this award? Jean-Ray Reed. Big general. Okay. You want to have a good time? Go sit down, have a slice, whatever, with Jean-Ray Reed, big general. And if you don't walk away from that just in hysterics, just smiling, then I don't know what to tell you, because he is one of the best kids on the team. He is funny. He is outspoken. He shoots from the hip. There have been times where I have talked to him this year where he lets a few swear words go or something. Oh man, I shouldn't have said that, right? But he's just that kind of guy. He just flies off the top of his head and absolutely wins that award. Some of the other names I mentioned, I'm going to forget a few here, certainly qualify. But if I had to sit down and just have a good time, big general at the top of my list. From Allie and Bob in Vermont. I love this. I could not love this more. The Rock and Ron Award for consistent communication. And that goes to Fran Brown. First of all, thank you for the shout out for our guy, Rock and Ron. That's amazing that you would honor Rock and Ron with that kind of award. That makes me happy. Fran has not only been a great communicator as a coach, he has been out in the community. If you go to his radio show, shout out to our guys at Heritage Hill Brewhouse. You know how accessible he can be. But you see, and it's not just the stuff that, look, they put this stuff on social media. Like, hey, look what we did. We did a charity event today. There have been so many instances I've heard about that have not made their way onto social media. Fran is out there. He's communicating. He is connecting with the fan base. The fact that Fran allowed us to talk to his assistant coaches, and by us being able to talk to the assistant coaches, you get to hear from the assistant coaches as a fan, right? What they're thinking, what they're doing, what they sound like, what they're like as people. Do they like it here in Central New York? And all those things we just never got to hear or rarely heard in the Dino Babers era, right? So thank you to Fran for that. And so far, so good. There's been a couple of moments and some press conferences and some other things where there's been a little pushback from Fran. We anticipated that, right? That was going to come along at some point, but you really couldn't ask for more in that department. And Allie and Bob had this, the Lunch Pail All-Star for consistency day after day. We mentioned that Trevor was going to get a few awards, and Trevor Pena gets that. From Don P., another terrific one here. Best imitation of Denzel Washington in Remember the Titans goes to Fran Brown after the officials flagged Syracuse for lining up over the center on NC State's field goal, which was a bogus call, A, and the out-of-bounds call in that game, and don't get me going on some other calls in that game. Certainly the award for get your act together goes to ACC officials because they have just been inept, to put it lightly. But yes, Fran did have a strong reaction to that penalty. We've seen some other passionate reactions to the officials from Fran this year. And look, he's learning, Fran, and he has been open about saying this. He's learning how to be a head coach and about timing and just the things that he never went through. And I appreciate that Fran has been honest. He was in the locker room after the NC State game, after a big win, telling these guys, and I'm paraphrasing here, you can see the video out there, but it was basically like, there were some things that I did in this game that put you in a bad position, and I've got to work on that, right? And I appreciate that honesty because you can't fake it. You've only been a head coach for 6 games, and you are still learning as a head coach. But yes, some of the reactions to some calls and frankly, some things that his team has done or not done well in his eyes have been a sight to see. So good one there from Don. James A., Comeback Player of the Year, another one for Trevor. Breakout player, Jackson Meeks, great choice. I love this. Best sideline drip goes to Marlo Wax, looking very icy with all that jewelry on. And the Optimus Primal Award goes to LaQuint Allen Jr. I love that Marlo one, and Marlo Wax, by all accounts, we think, timeline, and we'll get kind of official confirmation the closer we get, but appears to be ready to go in that Thursday night game against Pittsburgh, and Syracuse certainly needs him back. From Mark T., who says, most improved position group, and that's the offensive line and pass protection, they're the unsung heroes that you hardly hear about. Now, look, I think the offensive line can be better. I think they had some Savion Washington, hate to pick on you here, but had some procedure penalties both in the red zone against NC State, and you hate to see that creep its way in. I think the run blocking could be a lot better for Savion included and some big boys that are on that offensive line that weren't there last year. It was interesting to see how, and this was not due to injury, there was some mix-up on that offensive line, right? That came in and out. You saw David Wollabaugh get back out there. You saw some guys move around on that line. That's good because there's depth on that offensive line, and that is key. And look, I understand everybody's going through this in sports, but the hardest group to come together in really any position group and almost any sport is the offensive line. It is so hard for an offensive line to get in sync in this era where the revolving door is just constantly spinning, and you got to get those guys in sync. I think Mark makes a good point. I have seen McCord become Little League Kyle, as Fran likes to say, at times this year. He's rolling to his right a lot. He's anticipating some of the rushes, and that's good because a quarterback needs to do that. But I think Mark ultimately is right. He doesn't get all these 300-yard games if they did not step up enough. And McCord makes such quick decisions that I think he hides some of the inefficiencies of the offensive line, to be honest with you. But there's no way that he has 6 straight 300-yard games without that group doing its job. So we'll meet in the middle on that, Mark, but I appreciate you giving those guys some love. Kevin B., he says, Best Hands Award to Jackson Meeks. The True Grit Award to LaQuinn Allen. The Comeback Award, Trevor Pena. The Creating Fan Excitement Award goes to Kyle McCord. The John Mackey Award to Aronde Gatson. And the Tim Green Award goes to Fidel Diggs. Good stuff there. From Mike V., who says, the Lost and Found Award goes to Dan Villari, with an honorable mention to Justice Ross Simmons. Look, Villari had a tough few games to start the year. I'm thinking of that timing route, the interception in the Stanford game. From McCord, he's had some drops, but they were smart to take a step back, take a deep breath. How can we utilize you? And what we saw in the NC State game is how you can, I'm not totally giving up on Villari in the passing game, but it just hasn't been there. The timing hasn't been there with McCord. OG's the better option there, and maybe you shift away from that. But the fact that Villari, like Fidel Diggs, like other players on this team, notably Justin Barron. I'm surprised we haven't seen more awards for Justin Barron here and how huge he has been in that secondary, right? Let's give Justin Barron, I'm just making this up off the top of my head here, the Swiss Army Knife Award for how many different positions he has played on the defense. And by the way, he's getting a lot of love this week from Jim Nagy, who runs the Senior Bowl, which is, the premier event that highlights NFL talent. And they love Justin Barron, and they think his stock is rising. And I still think Barron's going to be a day 3 guy in the 2025 NFL draft. He's free to prove me wrong and move up to a day 2. Remember, day 1 is first round, day 2, second and third round, day 3 is rounds 4 through 7. But we can't go through this without giving Justin Barron some kind of award here. But Villari is taking on that role. You want to see Justice Ross Simmons get involved a little bit more. Mike V goes on to say, second half boost, Marlo Wax, Marcellus Barnes. They'll both be back, we think, for the Pitt game. The Hitman Award goes to Elijah Clark, who's quietly having a terrific season for Syracuse. The top secrets. Darrell Gill Jr. has made some big catches this year. My boy Willis. Umari Hatcher, who seems to have one big catch a game. And the Comeback Award, some of you gave it to Trevor Pena, but yeah, Aronde Gatson coming back from a major injury last year certainly deserves a shout out there. And Mike adds, best special teams play, Brady Denneberg's tackle on the kickoff return. Look, it's been a rough year for special teams, okay? I graded them a D, and they deserve that grade because it's been bad. The punt coverage has been bad. The 2 block kicks against UNLV, they've missed field goals. They've had to switch field goal kickers. You name it, it's happened. Penalties. They couldn't field a onside kick against Georgia Tech. They did against NC State, so I'll give them that. And I did see some improvement against NC State. Maybe the second half of the year, they're going to shake off some of the yips that they've had so far. Special teams has been bad. There's just no way around that. But that Brady Denneberg hit on the sideline, kickers can tackle too. I'll give him a shout out on that one. And good awards there from Mike. And last but certainly not least, we go to Buddy P. It says, Fran has to win this award. The Making 5 early season wins feel different, but no offense to Dino award. As Buddy says, still trying to recover from recent wounds, but I don't think anyone is sitting as uneasy entering the late half of the season this time around. This is a terrific point from Buddy here. Look, Syracuse has had some great starts, 6-0, but then barely get over the finish line to a bowl game, right? This is a team, the mark of the Dino Babers era, more than anything, was they faded in the second half of the year. Depth issues, injury issues. Last year is a prime example of this, and they got over the finish line, and they got to a bowl game then, and they did it in 2022 as well after that huge start by that team. So you got to give them credit for that. But this does feel different. this 5-1. And Emily Leiker wrote an awesome story on syracuse.com that you guys should check out about the team themselves. And a lot of this was said after the NC State win, but it's been said in other places. And I think the collective feeling that Syracuse football fans have is this team is better than this. And then you say, but they're 5-1. They're 2 points away from 6-0. Stanford had to kick a field goal as time expired to win that game. What do you mean they could be better? They can be better. They have not put together a complete four-quarter game. You have different units that have really struggled at times. Special teams have struggled all year, but even the offense that in the first half of the NC State game, all the red zone opportunities that resulted in either a field goal or no points at all, right? To a T, so many players on this team, and Fran Brown on down will tell you we can be better. And that's why I think the bye week did come at a good time for this team. The other bye week was too early, right? This bye week comes not to rest physically. They'll take it, right, to heal some bumps and bruises. But they can specifically hone in on and identify the issues they need to clean up to beat Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh is a beatable team. Shout out to Pat Narduzzi and what he has done with that team, because to be 6-0 with that team, and it also shows you the impact of you bring in a transfer. That quarterback has been the best quarterback to start a year at Pitt since Dan Marino in '82. So that just goes to show. I'm not saying he's Dan Marino, but this is the first Pitt team to be this far down the road and undefeated. And there's a lot of reminders of the Marino era coming up in Pittsburgh, right? Narduzzi has done an amazing job with that team, and you've got to give him a shout out. They've had some close wins. They've had some close calls. That is a beatable team. But if you're going to beat Pittsburgh, you've got to clean up a couple important things, notably missed tackles. Missed tackles have been an issue for this defense in the first half of the year. So I love that this bye week came at a time when the coaching staff, they don't have to assess anything. There have been prior years where you go into a bye and you'll hear from Babers, like, I don't know, we got to watch the film to see what's wrong. No, this team knows what's wrong. They know they can be better, and they're feeling good going into that game because they're 5-1 and they're coming off a win. And look, they scrapped a win over NC State. Georgia Tech was a 3-point win, right? This is a team that, short of the Holy Cross win, in Ohio, they won 38-22. But remember, first half of that game didn't go the way they wanted to. Georgia Tech, 31-28. You lose by 2 to Stanford. Holy Cross, we expect to be a big win. You scrap out a 44-41 overtime win over UNLV, and you beat NC State by a touchdown. This is not a team that's winning by big margins. And I think we've all come away from these games saying, credit to what they've done, but I feel like they're better than this. And they agree. So read that article by Emily. There's some great stuff in there about how they feel the exact same way that you do about this, right? So, buddy, I agree with you. I feel better about what the second half brings, but guys, Pittsburgh, then you got Virginia Tech at home, Boston College, who's kind of been up and down this year, at BC. There'll be a lot of Syracuse fans there, but that's not an easy trip. You got to go to Cal. Cal has lost 3 straight games by, I think, all of them by less than 7 points. And you're going all the way across the country. That fan base is rabid this year. They just got College Game Day. Cal got College Game Day before Syracuse did. That is a hard trip. UConn, you got to beat UConn at home. And then your final regular season game, Miami at the Dome, which is setting up to just not only be a very interesting game, Miami's first trip here in, 20 years or so, which is ridiculous. And I'm glad the ACC changed the scheduling structure so this doesn't happen anymore. But what could be on the line for that game? If Syracuse can hold its own here, and they can beat Pitt and get some big wins down the stretch here, you never know what could be on the line. But that is not an easy back half of the schedule. You got to stay healthy, got to clean some things up. But ultimately, I think a lot of you guys agree with Buddy P. Feeling better about this second half stretch than maybe we felt about some Dino Babers teams. But we shall see. That's why they play the games. You guys were awesome. Our Syracuse Sports Insiders brought it because they always bring it every single day. And I thank you guys for your terrific awards. We would love for you to jump in and become a Syracuse Sports Insider. Just text the word orange to 315-847-3899. That is one way to join. Another way you can join is to head to joinsubtext.com/Syracuse Sports. Okay, joinsubtext.com/Syracuse Sports. Let me pop it on the screen for those of you that are watching on YouTube so you can see the website here. That is a very easy way to join and become a Syracuse Sports Insider, where you can text me directly. I text you directly. I also send out tidbits, information, opinions, questions. Like today, I sent out the text, hey guys, this is what I was thinking for the pod. And look what we got. An entire pod full of Syracuse Sports Insiders handing out their midseason football awards. Becoming a Syracuse Sports Insider is easy. It's just $3.99 a month. You could try it free for 2 weeks. Check it out. This community is growing. We're getting out there in the wild. We met in Las Vegas. We've got some other meetups to come. Stay tuned for that, guys. We're planning some other ones a little closer to home here in central New York. And it is a growing community of some of the more passionate Syracuse sports fans out there. And we would love for you to be a part of it, including, look, we don't highlight social media on this pod. The only people that get a voice in this pod, other than me, of course, and our guests, are Syracuse Sports Insiders. You are a part of this. You fuel this podcast, and we thank you immensely for that. So thanks to all the great midseason awards that you guys handed out here. A reminder to please send me your original music, and we are going to have our friend Vala Ramos take us out. Shout out to Mark and his son. All the information in the show notes on how you can send us your original music to be highlighted here on Syracuse Sports. A song all about and inspired by Central New York and Syracuse, New York. It's called Coming Home, and it's going to take us out today on Syracuse Sports. We'll talk to you next time. Remember, no post-game show this week because there's no basketball or football this week, but there is basketball media day. That was on my brain. So I'll go to Media Day Friday, all the highlights from that next week on the pod. No post-game show this week, but we'll be back Thursday, October 24th for a post-game show after the Orange takes on Pittsburgh. And stay tuned and follow and subscribe on Spotify, Apple, and YouTube for all the latest episodes of Syracuse Sports. All right, Coming Home. Take us out.
Home is where the heart is. Well, mine's back in the 315. It's been waiting where I left it. Oh, I've been gone.